Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashley Paget and welcome to Avaya's Overcoming Depression and Loneliness curriculum. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Morry Zelcovitch, is here with us today to talk about how to overcome anything by upgrading the operating system of your mind. Morry is the creator of a new proprietary technology and methodology which uses sound to evoke specific brainwave states and helps listeners experience truly beneficial results. Its goal is to help listeners increase their brain power. It allows them to easily master their mind power and completely transform their life automatically simply by listening with no other effort required. Thank you so much for being here, Morry.
I appreciate the invite, Ashley, very much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump in, and why don't you tell us how you got into this field? How did you get started?
Well, the first 40 years of my life were lived in very dark depression. So look at the darkest black that's around you right now. For me, that was a bright sunny day. I used to wake up every morning, cross my fingers, draw the blinds, and hope I would see mushroom clouds. Because seeing mushroom clouds meant I didn't have to live through another day. When I didn't see mushroom clouds, very, very depressed. I tried to kill myself a bunch of times, but let's face it, if you really want to die, it's not that hard to do it. So the fact that I wasn't able to follow through meant that more of me wanted to live than wanted to die. When I realized I couldn't find a way to die, I had to find a way to live. And that started me out on hunting and pecking for different techniques and technologies that might be able to help me. The first thing I did, of course, was research. Yes. I needed to understand what was going on in my head, because initially I was just trying things all over the place and, helter-skelter, just trying, and things just didn't work out. And at that point I realized, all right, I need to become kind of like a scientist. So that's what made me into a scientist, actually. I started searching and reading all kinds of literature and neurological research papers, very dry stuff, definitely not Stephen King or, or Huxley or anything like that. Not entertaining, and never knew where it was going to lead, and rarely did it have a happy ending either. But I did study, and I started understanding that my issue was probably related to my brain. And it was probably, as I started studying the brain and the mind, I started realizing that your brain creates neurochemistry, and it's that chemistry actually that allows you to feel and act and react in the world around you. So because I was seeing the world in such a horrible way, and everybody else, seemingly, to me at least, was smiling and enjoying their lives, I realized this was an issue I had with my brain, not an issue everybody else had with theirs. And the studying made me realize that the brainwave activity that you create, which would mean the amount of times your neurons, which are your brain cells, pulse every second, that's what's known as brainwave activity. If it pulses 10 times a second, that's known as alpha. 5 times, that would be theta, etc. Depending on the region of the brain and the pulse rate, or the brainwave frequency, as it's more commonly known, that related to what chemistry was produced. So it'd be kind of like you and I both, let's say we were in a cooking competition, and the host of the competition gave us both the same kitchen, the same ingredients, the same everything. You cooked a masterpiece and it tasted amazing and it looked amazing. I took the ingredients and it basically tasted like solidified dishwasher.
Oh, no.
Soap. I was creating poor chemistry. So I had to realize, how was I creating this poor chemistry? And I figured out that the brainwave activity I was creating was causing that. And I thought, well, how do I change my brainwave activity? And the most common way to do that would be changing the way you think. Mm-hmm. So I tried to change the way I thought, and I couldn't. no matter what happened, I would always go back to my negative reflexive thoughts. Got even more depressed because I'm starting to understand my problem and I'm starting to realize there's nothing I can do about it. And then it hit me as soon as I started giving up. It hit me that if I can't change my thoughts, because it's a cycle. So you have negative thinking, which creates negative brainwave patterns,
Yes.
or a chemistry that creates the negative patterns. And that negative chemistry makes me feel and experience the depression that I was feeling. Those thoughts and that experience would then create more negative thoughts and more negative chemistry and so on and so forth. I realized if I can't change my thoughts, what if I could change my chemistry?
Mm.
And if I could change my chemistry, that should, if I'm right, my theory's right, then that should change the way I think automatically. So of course I tried all the usual things like sex addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, anything I could do to try to change my chemistry, because my initial thinking was to change it physically. And how do you do that? You introduce foreign objects into your body, so to speak. Well, that didn't work, because as soon as I would get those altered states or altered feelings, I would go right back to the way I was again. Mm. But in my research, as I'm studying the brain, as I'm studying neurobiology and neurophysics and all these other things, I finally realized that maybe I can actually influence my brainwave activity directly. And that's where brainwave entrainment came in. So I started researching brainwave entrainment. I started realizing what's going on, the dynamics of how it works and why it works. And I started designing my own recordings. By doing so, I remember the first time I listened to one of my beta recordings, I felt really no different, or so I thought, until about 5 minutes afterwards, when I realized all the voices were coming back. So I neglected to mention that one of my symptoms was I had thousands and thousands of voices in my head all the time. So every waking moment, it sounded like I was in a intermission of a rock concert, where you have tens of thousands of people there and they're all talking. So once in a while you'd pick out a word, but most of the time it's just a din of conversation at about the same volume we're talking at right now. So what happened was I realized, because suddenly it was like someone was in my head turning up the volume and I could suddenly hear the voices again. And that's when I noticed that they were gone. I didn't even notice they were gone. It's just until they started coming back again. And that was a first for me. That never happened ever before. And I realized I was onto something, and I kept my research up and I kept my creation up. And I went from being basically someone who wanted to be dead to someone who now wants to live forever. And I can attribute it completely to the brainwave entrainment recordings that I created. Recordings very, very similar. As a matter of fact, the beta recording I was talking about is one of the main recordings in the quantum mind method, which is one of my products. So
that's fantastic. I really love how you've taken, what was a really dark place in your life and found the courage to do something about it for yourself, to create that change for yourself. And now you're sharing it with everyone.
Well, everyone has a brain, so they can definitely be helping themselves with it. But, and I love the way you conceived it, that I had the courage to do it. But if I'm going to be totally honest with you, I had no choice. Yeah. I tried to end things. I couldn't end things. That's not very courageous, I don't think. I really didn't have any choice. I was kind of led there by circumstances. I'd love to think that, I could do this and I'd have a big red S on my chest and fly off into the sky. But that's not really the truth. I just didn't have any choice in the matter. And I believe that what I went through at the time, I thought was hell. 40 years of it seemed like hell. I feel like I've been alive about 900 years. Because you know what it's like when you're not having a good time, right? If you're sitting through a really bad movie, or that's right, time just crawls. So I feel like even though time passes quick now, for me, for most of my life, time passed at a crawl and I couldn't wait. So I feel like I've been alive almost a millennium, really. But it wasn't courage. There is no courage where you have no choice. And I really didn't have any choice. I think all of this happened to me, and I'm grateful for it now, because it allowed me to tweak systems and technologies and methodologies in ways that were unique and allow for more people to be able to benefit from them. And that's probably why I went through everything I did, so that I could be in a situation now at this point in my life where I have systems and technologies that, have a larger scope, especially with what's going on in the world.
Absolutely.
There's tons of stress, there's tons of anxiety, and who knows what else, tons of depression. And we don't need to feel that way. We can take advantage of natural facets of the brain, of the mind, and just let it naturally be brought back into homeostasis, into a balance.
That's fantastic. And we do have so much, especially now environmentally, with this whole, pandemic that's, creating or exacerbating depression and loneliness in people as we isolate. So I know this may be a very broad question, but why are so many people so depressed and lonely?
Okay, there's two reasons in my mind. Well, two major reasons in my mind. Obviously there's nuances, and everybody's different too. But essentially, when we were created as human beings, more or less in our human state, say thousands of years ago, when we were living in caves, if you will, we still had a brain, we still had eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Our brains have changed, certainly, and we've evolved, definitely. But the basic function of the brain hasn't really changed all that much. We're more intelligent, it's more complex. This is a natural evolutionary process, but the physiology of the brain really hasn't changed. So imagine you're now a cave woman and I'm a caveman, and we're paired up in some cave somewhere. And what's our life? Our life is simple. Our life is, we wake up in the morning, we eat, we go to the washroom, we have sex, we hunt and gather, and then we go to sleep, and then rinse and repeat, right? You just
Yes.
over and over again. And believe it or not, that's quite a much more stable existence than what we have today. We're much more complex today. So it's reasonable to assume that because that's pretty much all we did, we all lived consciously in the now. Because let's face it, everybody lives in the now anyway, whether they want to or not, whether they want to admit it or not. You can only live in the now physically. It's a matter of bringing our attention into the now. Yeah. So back then, our attention was in the now too. It's reasonable to assume that we would have had more stable brainwave patterns. And a brainwave pattern is more than just a word or a statement. It's actually a state where neurochemistry is released. So if I'm right, then as we evolved and got more stressed, we were less in stable brainwave patterns. So now fast forward to the future, where we're in a stable brainwave pattern, maybe for a second here and a second there and a second here. You can imagine we're just not getting the brainwave frequencies that we need to produce the neurochemistry that we need. On top of that, our diet sucks. We're not eating like we used to eat. Everything was organic back, thousands of years ago, right?
Yes.
It wasn't chemical. We weren't eating processed plastics and oils, like we're eating today. So from a neurobiological standpoint, we're just not getting the building blocks. We're not getting the ingredients to create the proper neurochemistry. And we're not for the most part, and we're also not getting the actual ability to have stable brainwave patterns for more than a few seconds. Which means, imagine you're starting up a lawnmower or you're starting up a car, but every time you start it up, it runs for a second and a half and then it stops.
Ooh.
Well, you're not going to get a lot done.
No.
It's the same thing with depression and with loneliness. We are starting our engines up to get rid of these feelings, to deal with them in a natural way, but the motor keeps sputtering out and we're not getting anything done. So that's a physiological standpoint. That physiological standpoint is brought on or made more complicated by the emotional standpoint. In other words, we don't have the social interaction we used to have. We're not getting the tactile feelings. We're not getting the hugging, the kissing. We're not getting that. A lot of people who are alone, literally living alone, are suffering from horrible loneliness because they don't have these natural neurochemicals being produced. It's not so much a function of not having the hugging and the kissing and the personal contact. It's what that creates in the body and in the mind and in the brain. That's what's missing. That can be augmented by something like properly engineered brainwave entrainment, so that you deal with it better, you cope with it better. You can get the same feelings by looking into someone's eyes as you can by giving them a hug. And when we start understanding the dynamics of how, what, and why we feel what we feel and why we're going through what we're going through, then we can start to understand and figure out ways to do something about it. There's a lot of people who have been inundated with their husbands, wives, boyfriends, and girlfriends and kids. I love you, wife. I love you, husband. I love you, kids. But get the hell away from me already. I've had enough of you, right? And that's actually creating horrible loneliness. It might even be more lonely to be with someone, but to be distant with that someone. Because before, our society is constructed, so we go to work, we go to school, we have time apart. It's nice to see someone you love after an 8-hour day, maybe it's 10 hours with travel and everything. It's nice to see someone. It's nice to cuddle with them, watch a little television, read a book, have a discussion. These things are all beautiful and nice, but we're not getting the opportunities to have these little loving moments together because we're sick to death of each other because we've seen each other too much. Now, But just like with my depression, not everyone is experiencing that. So what's the difference between people like my wife and myself who can't get enough of being around each other, even after 7 months, and actually years, to be honest, and other people who are like, were in love or seemed like they were in love before, and now they're just hurting each other emotionally and even sometimes physically? Well, the difference is the brain and how it's processing what's going on around you. When you start giving the brain the ability to act and react naturally to the environment, to what's happening around you, then you naturally will cope better. You won't be depressed. You won't be lonely. Even if you're living alone and even if you're in the middle of a full lockdown, you'll be able to get what you need just from looking at somebody's eyes, just from having a conversation with the tone and the nuance and the lovingness in the voice. There's more than, that old expression, well, you may not know it, but there's an old expression saying there's more than one way to skin a cat. I have no idea where that came from, by the way. But it's a really common phrase from my era. And I've
heard it, and I have 7 of them, so my brain is like,
Well, you see, you could figure out at least 7 ways to do it in that.
I don't want to.
I'm kidding. But there's more than one way to do anything.
Yeah.
And if we're doing something that makes us feel uncomfortable or sad or bad, then that isn't a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. Because what that is that's nature's way, that's your body's way, that's your mind's way of saying, hey, Morry, because I can't talk for someone else, so I'll talk for myself. Hey, Morry, you're either doing and or thinking something that isn't serving you. So I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I'm going to make you agitated. I'm going to make you angry. I'm going to make you this. I'm going to make you that. I'm going to make you anything I can to kick you out of that gutter that you're in and start doing things that make you feel good. People don't realize we have the ultimate sensor in us. The ultimate sensor is how we feel. I feel good and happy. I feel bad and lousy. I feel angry. I feel ecstatic. I'm turned on. I'm turned off. I'm all these different things. They tell me what I'm doing. It's like the red light on the dashboard of your life. Like if you had a brake light come on or an engine light come on in your car, you're not going to put a piece of electrical tape over that part of it so you don't see it and it goes away. But we do that in our lives.
Yes.
And that's the problem. One of the biggest reasons why we become really lonely and really depressed is because we ignore our body and our minds, which are trying to tell us you're doing something wrong. You're thinking something wrong. I'm trying to bring that to your attention. If you listen to me, I can help you. You can learn from this. We can get out of this feeling before it even gets bad. And that's the real lesson to be learned here. When we take something as bad, because we're brought up to think of things as bad and good.
Yes.
But inherently, there's no such thing as bad or good.
No.
You know, if a butterfly sees us going through something we would call bad, it doesn't know it's bad or good. It is. But if we define it as bad, we tend to back away and we tend to resist. I thought school was bad until I realized it had something to teach me. Then when I realized, well, maybe it's a lesson. I may not like the lesson, but it's still a lesson. If it's a lesson, then I can learn from a lesson. The minute I started having that attitude, when I started feeling bad, when I started feeling angry, when I started feeling depressed, I realized that was nothing more than my mind, my body, myself telling me, okay, Morry, you're going in the wrong direction. Back up, take a breath, turn left instead of turning right. That's all it is. It's not bad. I've broken bones. I've dislocated bones. If it didn't hurt, I wouldn't have gone to the doctor, and maybe I wouldn't be able to use my arms. Maybe I wouldn't be able to use my legs. But because of that pain, I was able to know something is wrong. I need to get it taken care of. That's how we need to treat our emotional health also. We need to realize that when we feel pain, when we feel discomfort, it's not a bad thing. It's actually something to be super grateful for, because without it, you don't know something's wrong and much worse can result. With it, you know something's amiss. And if you suddenly understand that, and if anyone walks away from this interview with anything from me at all, I want them to realize from now on that their pain, their anxiety, their depression, their loneliness is actually good, because it's telling them they're doing something wrong. And the beautiful thing about it is, as you educate yourself, as you try different things, you'll suddenly start noticing, as you feel better, that you're doing now the right thing. Because people always say, well, how do you know what the right thing is? How do you know what the wrong thing is? Well, the wrong thing makes you feel like caca. I don't know where your audience is on the swearing scale, so we'll just use that word.
That's good.
And, okay. And then, and as you start feeling better, you know you're on the right track. And if you start feeling worse, you know you're going in the wrong direction. Okay, time to pull back, reassess, and then move in a different direction. But it's really that simple. We're just misinterpreting what we feel as something bad. And when it's bad, we don't learn from it. When it's a lesson, though, that's when we learn. And that's when we move forward. And that's when we come out of our depression. Hey, 40 years of wanting to be dead, and I want to live forever now. If that's not proof of coming out of a depression, I don't know what is.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for putting that into perspective for us, because you're absolutely right. We're brought up, we're encultured to identify things as, oh, this is bad, oh, this is good, oh, if this anger or this discomfort that I'm feeling is a bad thing, so I should either quell it, I should bury it and move on, or I should just I don't know, do what you do with it. So really giving us the opportunity to look at that as a tool rather than something to be shunned or something to be enacted or what have you is, I think, very, very helpful.
Listen and understand. The minute you start getting closed-minded, the minute you start getting angry or upset or depressed, you're heading in the wrong direction. Not because you're getting depressed, but because you're misinterpreting that feeling as depression. Yeah. It isn't depression. It's actually something, because depression is bad. At least that's how we define depression. The feeling of depression actually isn't bad. It's good, because it's telling you something is wrong. When I was a kid, I played hooky from school, and I was bored, and my mom was cooking, and she was on the phone, and I, tugging at her, mom, pay attention to me. And honey, I'm busy right now. I'm talking to your aunt. I'm cooking, go watch TV, go play with your puzzles, whatever. And of course I didn't. And I looked at the stove and I saw this little element glowing. It was glowing and it was fascinating me. So I reached out for it. And she said, honey, don't do that. You'll burn yourself. Very soft, loving voice, right? And then, of course, I'm an idiot, so I just kept reaching out. And every time I reached out, she got angrier and angrier and louder, right?
Yeah.
And then I reached out the second last time, And she yelled at me. She said, "Don't do that." And she slapped my hand and it hurt. But of course I'm an idiot. So, I just kept going. I went one more time and this time she didn't catch me and I burnt the crap out of my hand. There were rings on my hand. I looked like a super idiot. I was going to say superhero, right? Because I had a pattern on my hands, but no, it was a super idiot. I had the rings because back then it was rings and they were exposed on the stove. And it was on my hand and it hurt like hell for I don't know how long, too long. But that's where I learned my lesson finally, because that was my body, my mind telling me, you're doing something wrong. You need to pay attention. You're doing something wrong. You need to pay attention. Okay, you don't want to listen to me? I will prove it to you.
Yes.
Right? And this is what people need to do. So if they start ignoring these warnings from these loving messages, then they will eventually get something really bad happening to them. They'll break a bone. They'll hurt themselves. They'll do something horrible. How many times for those of us who drive or even walk, how many times have we had experiences of close calls and we just ignore them? And maybe we have one or two or three of them. And then all of a sudden we're in a car accident because we ignored the warning signs, which were trying to tell you, you need to pay more attention. You're driving this tank, essentially. You can't just keep ignoring my warnings. You're not paying attention while you're driving. You're not looking to the left. You're not looking to the right. You're thinking about your day. You can do that, but not when you're driving. You can't be distracted. But people don't realize that. They ignore it. They ignore it. They ignore it. And I encourage everyone out there to think about this to themselves. How many times have they walked into a wall or stubbed their toe or broken something or whatever, and think back to the quote unquote warnings that they experienced probably even maybe a number of times, a number of days or weeks before. And they'll start to understand that, very rarely does something horrible happen right away. I mean, people know smoking gives you cancer, but they still smoke.
Yes.
But then when they get cancer, that's when they stop. I burned the crap out of my hand before I stopped, right? We need to understand that we have all the control in the world. And if you feel depressed, if you feel lonely, that is actually a feeling designed to help you. There's a lesson in there for you. When you start looking for the lesson, you will actually find the lesson and you won't be depressed and you won't be lonely. Now, some people, there's neurochemical reasons for that and they need to see a doctor. So,
Absolutely.
But there's always a lesson. Regardless of whether you need medication or you don't need medication, there is always a lesson in there. And sometimes that lesson is, what my brain, like my brain was, is not producing what it should, when it should. And, I needed extra help. No embarrassment in needing extra help. We all feel lonely at times. We all are depressed at times. The beautiful thing is we do live in the now. So I went through 40 years of constant, nonstop, incessant depression. And when you're depressed, you're never lonelier than when you're seriously depressed.
Yeah.
And yet, that's then, this is now. I'm fine. I'm better than fine. I'm happy. And whatever happened before doesn't matter. And it's the same for you. Whatever happened before is a lesson to be learned. It's not something you need to keep experiencing over and over and over again.
Yes, absolutely. And so it's quite clear that your method is very, very helpful. So can you tell us a little bit more about it? What exactly is the Morry method, the TMM?
All right. So the Morry method, TMM is the Morry method, of course.
Yeah.
And that's what I designed. It's my methodology and technology that I've designed and I continue to design in different products, different techniques that I've developed over the years. Basically, when I was going through this depression, I had various experiences that upon hindsight, I noticed certain things about, certain nuances about, and I learned from them. And as I learned from them, I took technology that already existed and then I kind of manipulated it and I changed it and I adapted it to fit my model of the brain and human thought. And that's essentially what the Morry method is. It's using audio, sound, vibration really, and more recently, and in this system, as a matter of fact, was the first time I introduced visual stimulation as well. That actually helps to automatically change the neurons. Neurons are your brain cells.
Yes.
So change their behavior, how many times they pulse a second, to allow them to get into stable brainwave states, like I was alluding to before with our cave dwelling ancestors.
Yes.
That allow us to maintain a stable frequency, dominant frequency of certain types of brainwave activity that release different hormones, endorphins, and neurotransmitters that together make a nicer tasting soup. So it's kind of like initially I cooked a crappy meal, you cooked a wonderful meal. Well, you, instead of just winning the award as the best chef and Morry winning the award as the crappiest chef, you took pity on me and you said, hey, Morry, come here, let me show you how to cook. And you taught me how to cook a great meal. That's essentially what this system does. It teaches you as simply as putting on headphones, lying back, closing your eyes, hit play. That's it. You can even fall asleep while you're listening. It makes no difference. There's no homework to do. There's no studying to do. It takes advantage of something called the frequency following response, which is kind of like when you're listening to music and you bop your head.
Yeah.
And you're not paying attention that you're bopping your head. You're just
Vibing.
doing it. Yeah, that exactly. That is actually a form of entrainment. So your mind and your body are entraining to the tones, to the beat of the music, and you're bopping around. Now, excuse my lack of any proper bopping. I'm not a dancer and I have no sense of rhythm.
There was a rhythm, it's good.
Yeah, there was a rhythm in my head at least. Just trust me on that. But that's what happens. So I guide you into these states and I give you the ability to behave and have your brain behave as it was intended to. So it's really no wonder that people who use this type of technology properly feel better and do better. It's because the chemical soup they create is a more positive chemical soup. They're getting more of the neurochemistry that they need, that they're designed for. Imagine driving a car with, or let's even say a bicycle. Why leave a carbon footprint? So imagine you're riding a bicycle and the front tire is totally deflated and the rear tire has a little bit of air in it and the chain is rattling and always falling off and the brakes sometimes work and sometimes don't. You're not gonna have a very pleasant experience on that bike. No. But now imagine that your brakes are perfect, your tire pressure is perfect, the tread on your tires is perfect, everything is perfect. Now it's a smooth, nicely running machine. Well, that's what your brain can be. It can be a smooth, nicely running machine that does and operates as it's supposed to, as it was designed by history, by evolution to operate. Because without, again, by understanding, and that's what I had to go through, by understanding the dynamics of how something works, you not only are able then to figure out ways to make it work properly and better, but even more importantly, you're in a position when you understand how things work to lose something. So I've been talking about gaining things, right?
Yes.
But maybe even more importantly, you lose something. And what do you lose? You lose fear. Because when you don't understand something, it's scary.
Yes.
Because you don't know what to do about it. But if you knew what to do about it, let's say you're being attacked by a shark and you have no idea what to do. Well, you start hearing da 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 da, right? And then the shark goes like this, and now you're half the person you used to be, right? So, but think about it now. Now, as the shark's approaching you, remember a National Geographic you watched when you were a kid, or a book you read about sharks, and as the shark gets close, you give him a pop on the nose, and he takes off.
Yes.
Right? Knowledge is power, but it also allows you to do anything and everything that you need to do without fear. So as soon as you start understanding what's going on with your brain, fear goes away. As soon as fear, and goes for anything, as soon as you understand anything that scares you, and look, if something scares you, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, if it makes you depressed, if it makes you sad, if it makes you lonely, that's a sign that you need to learn. You need to understand something. When you understand it, you won't feel that loneliness anymore. You won't feel the sadness anymore. It kind of dissipates. At the very worst, it'll dissipate. At the very least, it'll dissipate. And again, some people need help. And sometimes the brain entrainment will get you to a point, and it'll open your mind up to the idea that, I should probably call someone to help me. Maybe I need to talk to a professional. Maybe I need to talk to a social worker or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or whatever. But that knowledge and that ability to open up and say, I need help. I now need to know I need help, and I need to go somewhere to get that help. That is also part of what brainwave entrainment does for you.
Yes.
It opens you up to what is available and what is possible. And sometimes what is available and what is possible is enough. Sometimes it's all inside of you and you can do everything by yourself, like I was able to do. But other times it opens you up to the idea that you do need help, that you do need to talk to someone. And there's nothing embarrassing about needing help, and there's nothing embarrassing about needing to talk to someone. Be grateful that people are trained to help other people.
Yes.
Think about that. Imagine how it would be if there was nobody who had a clue how to help you. There's someone out there, believe it or not, even though you feel alone and you feel like you're the only person in the world who feels like this. And believe me, I understand that feeling. The truth is, that's egocentric.
Yeah.
You aren't the only person who's ever felt like this. There have been probably millions of people who have felt like this. Those people have all been studied. There's knowledge out there that we're not aware of personally, you and I, but that someone else has that can make us better, that can make us feel better. So it's important not to close your mind. My wife had a couple of serious autoimmune issues. And when we went in, the doctor thought she was going to die.
Yeah.
She didn't say anything. Later on, she told us when everything was fine. So my wife followed the medical advice. And the medical advice helped save her life. There's no question. But she also took it upon herself to understand what was happening to herself. And she studied and she researched. And a lot of people would just be afraid to go, no, I'm going to leave this all to the doctor. Right? But then they take away their own involvement. And actually studies show that if you involve yourself in your own healing, you tend to have better results healing. So long and the short of it is, my wife studied. My wife changed how we ate. We changed our diet. We changed how we cook. We changed what we cooked with. And now she's been considered cured for a few years now of 2 autoimmune issues that routinely kill people and relapse.
Wow.
She hasn't relapsed. She feels great. She looks great. She does everything normally. Her doctor stopped coloring her hair. Her doctor eats better because she can't get over the difference. You have the bottom line, and the story here isn't that I'm bragging about my wife, although I am. However, I'm allowed to feel proud that I know someone and someone like this is in my life.
Partners deserve to be talked up. It's fine.
I agree. and especially when she's taught me so much.
Yes.
But the whole point of this story is there's nothing that you can't overcome as long as you face it. And when we have an issue, the worst villain is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get rid of that fear. It can go away. And it'll try to stop you. You'll feel resistance, right? I have a lot of people who start using my products, and after a week or two, they're actually noticing pretty decent results, but suddenly they stop listening. Right? And that's resistance, because the resistance doesn't want you to change. Even though you're miserable, even though you hate life, even all this stuff, it doesn't want you to change because it likes being in control. So we need to start understanding that resistance is nothing more than a sign you're moving. You walk from one end of a room to another, and it's easy. Mm-hmm. Fill that room with molasses up to your waist, and then try to walk to the other end of the room. It's harder. That's what we're doing. We're filling our lives with molasses so that we have a struggle to get from point A to point B. But once we understand we're doing that, now we can do something about it. Because most of the time we blame government, we blame other people, we blame our partners, we blame lack of having a partner. We always blame some external source for our issues. Yeah. And that's nice because it makes us feel justified in how we feel. But is that serving you to feel justified? Of course not. So why play games with yourself? Why not understand how things really work in real life? And when you understand it, then the whole world opens up to you in ways that you can take care of it. Not even defeat it or beat it or punch it down. It's really just to use it as the loving kindness it is. It's you on some level teaching you or trying to teach you that you're doing something or thinking something wrong. And all you need to do is listen. And when you listen, it comes out, and that's what the product really does. Now, there is a vision there. So basically the sounds are like a shh, which is 600 different frequencies that I overlaid on top of each other. The design behind that is so that when we use the recordings, it blocks out extraneous noises that might influence or get in the way of the entrainment process, but it also augments the tones that you're going to hear. So you're going to hear ba, 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 that kind of a thing. And your neurons, which are your brain cells, will start pulsing at that rate and put you into these stable frequencies, dominant frequencies, which will allow your brain to produce the neurochemistry that it needs and that it's designed to produce, to help you to see the world easier, to act and react in the world easier. Some of the recordings have my voice in it. So if you aren't sick of it now, hopefully you won't get sick of it later, but I'm guiding you through different techniques. There's like a hypnosis, and there's a emotive hypnosis, which guides you through the ups and the downs of emotion. And then there's gratitude meditation, because gratitude, I mean, I don't think you'll find anyone in the world who thinks gratitude is a bad thing to have. But there's new technology. There's something to help you sleep. There's something, using the entire system as a whole will, of course, help you in a holistic way. But there's a new visual aspect, and I alluded to that I introduced a new technology. It's called VI. And VI stands for vying to be your best. But it also stands for visual image entrainment. So it's a new style of technology that's never been done anywhere. They're 3-minute videos, and there's 6 of them on different topics. Basically, you put on your headphones, you can watch your smartphone, you can stream it to your TV. However, you have to go into a meeting and you're a little nervous, no big deal. Make sure you're there a few minutes early. Watch the meditation. It has images that are geared to initiate different types of feelings inside the person. It uses a special color therapy model that I designed that's overlaid on top that also helps to act and react with the photoreceptors in your eyes to create an entrainment process to help you release the type of chemistry you need to be calm and confident. It includes tones, audio tones, that also help to entrain the brain. So as you use the regular system, your brain becomes used to these tones, not so that you get less effect, but so that it knows how to act and react. So normally it can take 4, 5, 6 minutes for your brain to start in training. But once you've been using the system for a while, and then you use these VI recordings, even 3 minutes is enough to elicit the neurological chemical response that brings your brain into that state much faster. So between all the different technologies, I mean, there's even something called targeted mini systems, because this system specifically is designed based on the idea that on some level, you know what you need, even if you're consciously not aware of it. And it helps you not only to find it, but it helps you to take action on it. However, a lot of people out there like being held by the hand. A lot of my compatriots, and very properly so, I might add, offer specific help in specific areas. And I think that's wonderful. So my system isn't doing that really, because it's kind of working on the basis that I'm going to let you figure it out for yourself by stimulating your neurons. But I wanted to help people who need those specific help as well. So I have targeted mini systems for sleep, for depression, for anxiety, and these special systems are when you're feeling the crunch, when you're feeling the pressure of these topics, you can actually replace your listening of the regular recordings for whatever period you need to listen to these specialized systems. And these specialized systems actually have tip sheets as well. So there's like 4 or 5 or 6 exercises, things you can do that will naturally help to alleviate and retrain your mind and your attitude to something that is more valuable and something that can help you.
That's amazing. And your technology and everything that you've put into it sounds so beautifully intricate.
It's intricate, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. It's so easy to use. It's like I drive a car and I consider myself to drive it well. I mean, I think I would need you as a passenger to tell me if you're, don't need to file your nails anymore because you've bitten them all down. But I kind of like to think of myself as a decent driver. But I don't know how to fix a car, if the car breaks down, my way of fixing it is to pick up my phone and make a phone call. That's how I fix a car. But I don't need to know how to drive a car for it to work. I don't need to know the intricacies for it to work. For me, it's very simple. I get in, I turn the key, I use a steering wheel, a brake, a gas pedal, I'm ready to go. That's how it is with this. You don't need to understand or even know how what I do works. You just need to know how to use it. And again, how to use it couldn't be easier. Ordinary stereo headphones, just ordinary. If you don't have, make what is it, Bezos from Amazon, make them a little bit richer, buy a pair of $9 headphones from Amazon and have it delivered the next day. Yes. That's all you need. You don't need fancy headphones. You don't want to have bass being played with. You don't want the EQ to be being played with. You don't want noise cancellation, none of that fancy stuff, because all of that actually will get in the way of a proper, because I've done everything you need done.
Yes.
The minute you start adjusting things, you're kind of changing what I've done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tinkering.
That's right. And I've already got it tuned the way it needs to be tuned. So that's all you need to do. You need to lay down or sit with head support. You need to close your eyes. You hit play, make sure it's a comfortable volume, and that's it. Some people think you get bored hearing but all the time. Interestingly enough, you don't. It's kind of like saying you get bored when you breathe. I've been breathing a lot of years now. I don't think it's serving a purpose anymore. My body's used to breathing. So I'm going to stop breathing, or I'm going to stop eating, or I'm going to stop brushing my teeth, or I'm going to stop thising or thating. There are certain things in life that are good for you all the time. And brainwave entrainment is exercise for the brain. A lot of people exercise the body, but they don't really consider their mind important. And this not only exercises your mind, but it exercises your brain all automatically. And you will start feeling changes as long as you pay attention, because what's interesting is you don't tend to notice good things. You notice bad things.
Yes.
You notice when you stubbed your toe, but until you stub your toe, you don't really notice your toe there at all. So, it's true. I've had customers call me up, Morry, I'm listening just like you tell me to. I'm listening, and I don't feel anything. And I have to explain to them all the time. All right, so explain to me how your day is, and explain to me how your day was, and all these other things. And usually by the end of a 20-minute call, they've told me 4 or 5 or 6 things that are different about their lives. But they kind of focused on one thing as proof. And because they focused on that one thing, they didn't actually notice what happened. Yes. We don't always notice or know what's right for us. How many times do we want something really? I used to be a real iPhone freak, and I would wait in line for the iPhones. And then literally 5 minutes after I got the iPhone, I'd look at my old iPhone and my new iPhone. I go, okay, the screen's a little bit bigger. All right, the resolution's a little bit better. Okay, it's a little bit faster. What the hell did I just do? I just spent like $1,000 on something that's a little itty bitty bit better than what I had before.
Yeah.
Do I really need that? Of course not. Marketing is a powerful tool. So all I'm saying is that, again, it's all about understanding. When we understand why, everything else can fall into place easily. Fear is gone. Depression, alleviates. Loneliness, see you later, alligator. No one of us is ever truly alone. We're all connected on some level. People you don't know and who will never meet are connected to you. It's our responsibility to do whatever we can to be happy and to feel good. Because like I said, I think we're all connected on some level. And if you're sad, if you're depressed, if you're lonely and you're wallowing in it, then you're actually kind of making other people feel that way too, whether you realize it or not. And it's entirely possible other people were making you feel that way in the first place, because again, we're all connected. Yes. But if we all realize that we may be getting nuance feelings from other people, the real feelings we get are generated within. And that's something we can control. And believe me, try this experiment. You don't have to be close to people when you're out to do this. I used to stand outside downtown and watch people walk by. And every person who walked by, I would focus on. I would literally focus on them, and I would smile. and just feel good about them being alive in the world. And 9 out of 10 times, they're not even looking at me. But you see someone walking like this. And as they get closer, they start smiling, and they're probably not even aware that they're smiling.
Wow.
We're all connected. We are. And understand that, and understand that you have a ton of power. You can influence those around you as much as they influence you. Anger and sadness and loneliness are all very powerful emotions and feelings. But they're powerful in that they're telling you you're not thinking the right thing.
Yes.
Understand, and through understanding, you'll get out of it. You have no reason to be lonely. You're loved by people who you don't even know. Okay,
Yes.
No reason to feel lonely at all. This too shall pass. We all live in the present moment anyway. I went through 40 years, much worse than we've been going through for 7 months. And I am joyous and feeling amazing. I feel like I'm going to cry. I'm so happy. Okay. Oh. It wells up inside of me.
Yeah.
No reason why any of you can't feel that way too. And you probably do on some level already. But sometimes it's our belief that we're far away that makes it seem far away.
Yeah.
Understand you're much closer to what you want than you think you are, and you'll start noticing it all around you. You start giggling when no one's around. See, that's a good thing about the semi-isolation, right? No one will look at you funny when you start giggling. So there's always a bonus. There's always a plus. You can always find a way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are running low on time, and I would like to remind everyone that there are 2 buttons below this video. When you click on them, they will lead to a free gift and a special offer that Morry has for you. Can you tell everyone what those are?
Sure. The first offer is, and it's for the price of an email address. That's all it is. Okay. We have a special recording that declutters the mind. So a lot of us have problems with holding on to things we don't want to hold on to, including emotions and non-serving beliefs. And this will actually help to declutter your mind. See, the idea behind entrainment is it makes your neurons follow a pattern. So when you're exposed to these tones, your brain will start trying to follow almost immediately. And as it gets more and more exposure, it will actually get closer and closer to following. So what this particular recording does is it asks your brain to start following. And as soon as your brain starts following, it changes the frequency. And it changes the frequency. And it changes the frequency. So the brain naturally is still trying to follow these frequencies. It can't because they keep changing. So more and more resources go towards trying to link up to these frequencies, to follow them. And as more resources go to trying to follow those frequencies, less resources are left over for you to be stuck and to be thinking those non-serving thoughts. So declutter helps literally to declutter your mind because it refocuses you on something that you can't have, but it's good because it's taking your attention away from what you do perceive yourself as having, but that isn't helping you and is going against you. And people tend to feel nice and relaxed afterwards, and they feel calm, and they feel kind of like the world has slowed down its spin. You don't have that dizzy feeling anymore.
Yes.
Then there's the quantum mind method, which is the main system, of course, which I briefly described some of the recordings. There's a recording there for sleep. You put it on when you go to bed at night. It's basically the first half of a healthy adult sleep cycle designed to retrain your sleeping habits. If we wake up in the morning and we're tired or we're anxious or we're not ready to go, we need that coffee or that cigarette or that shower to get going. Not that I'm saying you shouldn't shower, but but if you need it, it's a sign you didn't get a good night's sleep. And when we have a good night's sleep, that's almost more important than anything else to having a good day, is having a good night's sleep. You cope better, you have better patience, everything is better when you sleep well. So this recording is actually called Good Night, Sleep Well. And it guides you through and it trains your brain how to get back into those healthy adult sleep cycles. Don't use it for kids, but for adults, it's fine. Then there's other recordings, and they are all geared with different brainwave activity patterns to train your brain how to do different things, how to get into different states. And it's like going to a health club and you go on one machine to do your arms, another machine to do your legs, another machine to do your belly, another machine to do your this and your that. It's a kind of a holistic approach to exercising your mind and your brain. And by using this system regularly and consistently, at least for the first month or two, you should see massive changes in how you perceive the world, how you behave in the world, and how you react to stimulus and events around you. And I'll call them events instead of good things or bad things, because you'll be calling these things, you'll be interpreting them less as bad and more than as just things as you start going through the process. Now, one thing I do want to point out is a lot of people think, well, you're asking me to listen a lot every day. That's only in the beginning. Just like with exercise, you work out, you get your heart to the right state, you get your body to the right state. Then it takes much less on a weekly basis to maintain those results. So even though in the beginning, I might be asking you to listen 1, 2, or 3 times even a day, first of all, it'll make you more efficient so you get more work done. But when you get to where you want to be, you'll probably be able to lower your listening down to once or twice a week in order to maintain those results. If you're like me, who cares about maintaining? I want to see how high up I can get.
Yeah.
There's no glass ceiling where I live. The
Yeah.
sky is not the limit. The universe is not the limit. There are no limits. So you can also do what I do. You can just keep listening whenever you have an opportunity. I listen 1, 2, 3 times a day. You know, if you have the time, some days you may want to listen more often, other times less. But if you do it consistently, there's no limit to what you can achieve. There's no limit to how you can feel. And you know what? When you feel better, you'll feel more like helping other people around you who you see are hurting and suffering. And there's no better feeling in the world than being there for others. So thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being here and for offering these resources to our viewers. I encourage everyone to look into it, click those buttons, and experience a better state of mind.
Well, one last thing I'd like to point out that I realize I'm not, distributing apples and oranges that everybody knows something about. For many of you out there, this might be something totally new and unheard of before. I'm there for you if you need me. I'm available. As a matter of fact, my cell phone number is what's on the website. So if you need my help along the way, I'm there for you.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us for this latest class. We'll see you again soon.
Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.